Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about hail and managing hail in your garden. I personally have dealt with this in the last year. Surprisingly this year I haven't had a whole lot of hail, but it's something that I deal with every year almost in my garden. And growing up, I had a garden, but I lived in a different part of the country that did not have hail. So as an adult, I moved here to Texas and we get tons of hail every season. Last year, we had a tornado come through our area and it weakened by the time it got to us, but it was still like a heavy storm and we got a lot of hail, and we even had horizontally blowing hail. It was, the wind was going like horizontal. So even though I had stuff kind of overhead, it was not very good, but I did have some kind of overhead shade cloth. The hail was blowing sideways into my garden, so that was another issue that I had. But for a few days I was pretty devastated, honestly. I cried a couple times right after it happened. At first you kind of go into shock, and then soon after that you start, you feel really sad. Then you shift into, how do I take care of this first of all, and then how do I prevent this from happening again? So one of the problems with the hail is that obviously it's going to shred your plants. And so at first you're going to want to look at your plants and you're going to want to remove all the debris, dead stuff, everything that's kind of been knocked off the plants. Go ahead and try to get that stuff cleared out as quickly as possible, because if you leave that stuff, you're going to get more bugs and disease. So that's the first step. Then the second step is to leave stuff and watch it, and watch for signs of disease, watch for insect activity, look to see if the plant's growing new leaves, and if it has signs of recovery. It should show some new leaves and new growth within 2 to 4 weeks after getting hit by hail. If the plant within a month or so is dying back, then you're going to want to pull the plant. And if you're wondering, most of the plants are probably going to recover. I would say about 3/4 of my plants recovered, or at least 2/3. I had some that were pretty small and they just got knocked to the ground and I had to replant. But that wasn't too bad because I had just planted them, so I didn't lose too much time. But I had some other more mature, like pumpkin vines and cucumbers. I found that those vining plants really struggled to recover. I ended up pulling a lot of my pumpkins, watermelons, cucumbers, melons. Those all got pulled out and I had to replant them. Fortunately, I have a long growing season. Unfortunately, it gets really hot here in the summer and the growth of those plants was stunted. The plants, especially the pumpkin plants that I did leave, did attract more squash bugs than usual. I don't usually have a squash bug problem here, but last year I had a horrible problem, and as well as other people in my area had that problem too. And I think it's because the leaves got heavily shredded during the storm and emitted that hormone that the pumpkin plants have in their leaves and attracted more bugs than usual. That's my theory. So that's something to watch for if you have pumpkin or squash plants, is watch out for bugs. It's kind of a double whammy there. And then something that I also did was I did replant or add in more plants. So I did go back through and just start planting like a whole bunch of seeds, just in case some of my plants didn't recover too well. And so it ended up really filling in my garden. Now, as far as prevention, it really pays to have some kind of plan in place, something more permanent. I don't recommend waiting until you have a big storm or waiting until the weather forecast says it's going to hail to run outside with buckets and totes and bricks and stuff trying to cover your plants. That does work, but it's very stressful. Or what if you're not even home when that happens, and you have a storm pass through, you're not going to be able to protect your plants. So having some kind of permanent structure over your garden is going to be better than waiting and panicking at the last minute. If you have plants in pots, you could move them into a garage or onto a porch, and that would work. If you have an in-ground garden or raised bed garden, though, you really need covers over top of your garden. So if you live in a warm climate like me, shade cloth works really well. It's very bouncy, and so the hail will bounce off of it instead of like going right through it. Sometimes the hail will collect on the top of it and it will get weighed down with hail. So you want to make sure that whatever is holding up your shade cloth is pretty strong. Things are tied down very well, because you also may have wind as well. You can try using hoops and have the shade cloth over top of hoops over your garden. Or you can get hail cloth. If you don't live in a hot climate like me, you can use hail cloth to prevent the hail from damaging your garden. Now what I ended up doing was I ended up getting a carport frame and putting that over my garden. I even got a couple of them and lined them up if you have a larger garden. If you have a small garden like me though, you can just get one. They usually come in about a 10-foot by 20-foot size or a 10-foot by 15-foot size. And if you're wondering, the one in my garden is 10-foot by 15-foot. And then I have a 10-foot, let's see, 12 by 20 feet because I couldn't find something that was perfectly 12 feet by 15 feet. So if you have a 10-foot by 20-foot carport, a 12-foot by 20-foot shade cloth is going to work well for that size. Or if you have something smaller, you can just roll up the sides like I've done. If you get shade cloth that's a little bit bigger than your frame or whatever you're using, you can, during a storm or right before a storm, you can pull down the sides, and that can help with if you have that horizontal hail. So I know this might sound crazy, especially if you are not from a hail prone area or you haven't gardened in a hail prone area. This can sound kind of crazy having some kind of like circus tent above your garden, but it's necessary if you live in a hail prone area like I do. And you want to make sure that whatever structure you have is either like cemented into the ground, or you want to make sure that it is tied down very well. I have mine fastened onto my fence, which is a metal fence, so it's not going anywhere. And then I have the shade cloth securely fastened over the top. And that is how I am successfully protecting my garden from hail. I love the carports because they have a slanted roof, and so the hail will just fall off the sides. Instead of pooling on top and weighing down the shade cloth, it could cause the whole thing to collapse. So if you have a flat roof, that's something to consider. It's better to have some kind of sloped roof so the hail will roll off of it. But I do really love that setup, and it also doubles as heat protection here in Texas. It helps to provide a little bit of shade in my garden. And I'll try to have links for the stuff that I use in my garden for my hail protection setup and shade cloth setup in the description box down below. You can use stuff like halachis and stuff, but again, it's like the buckets or totes, like you're gonna be running out there at the last minute to put those on. And a lot of times, to be honest, like the weather will say that it's going to storm and then it doesn't. So as you can imagine, it can be really annoying if you don't have some kind of plan in place ahead of time before the hail hits. You really don't want to be panicking at the last moment. It doesn't feel fun. Or standing inside and watching your garden get pummeled to the ground. So I highly recommend taking some time now as you're thinking about it to plan out some kind of hail protection. I love my setup, and if you have any questions about it, ask me in the comments. I will be happy to answer your questions, and I will have things, as I mentioned, linked in the description box. So if you want to have my exact setup, go ahead and check that out. And please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And I have a free homesteading Facebook group. If you want to join that, I'll have that. I always have that linked in the description box. And I hope you enjoy this video, and I'll see you guys again soon.